This is Annie's Way. This is my podcast, and I'm so glad to see you all. I'm excited. I hope you are too. This has been very exciting for me because I want to share. And today I plan to share with you the importance of reading. Reading and writing are both important. And for those of you who might be afraid of writing, remember, writing is just talk written down. It's talk written down, it's thought written down. And I'm just going to share with you how easy this is. To me, it's very easy. I went through some of my journals. I only brought a couple with me, but I want to share with you because some of them I wrote about 40 years ago. This one page, I just happened to turn to this page. And this page I wrote when I was thinking about an old friend of mine. And here's what I said. Mr. Herman Lewis, a friend, a buddy, a male model for my children. We had so much fun together. We went fishing, target practicing, duck watching, etc., etc. So this was just a memory I have of Mr. Lewis, and he's deceased now. Some people knew him as Buster. Quotes are good to gather too. Sometimes I'll look through a paper or maybe listen to Dr. Phil or somebody, and they might come up with a quote. And I'm looking at a quote by Oprah Winfrey. And Oprah says, "You cannot hate other people without hating yourself." I found that to be very interesting. You cannot hate other people without hating yourself. And I took this out of a local paper. I took the quote out, and it had Oprah's picture and her note, and I took it out and I glued it to a card, glued it to an index card, and I do some cheap laminating. I buy this large tape, the cellophane tape, and if I use a card, an index card, I just wrap it around. I have another quote by Frederick Douglass, and the reason I'm mentioning these people today is because we are celebrating Martin Luther King this month, and I think next month is Black History. So we'll be talking about all races, and we'll celebrate all races, but I'm choosing these people in honor of Dr. King. And here's a quote that Frederick Douglass said. He said, "Power concedes nothing. Without demand, it never did, and it never will." Think about it. Power concedes nothing. Without demand, it never did, and it never will. So you must have power, but there's got to be some demand to it. In other words, we don't want to just run around spouting words, saying things, meaning nothing. Sometimes it's best not to say anything. A poem that I raised my children with, I think some of them remember, and it goes like, I can't remember the author, but it says, "Make the words you speak today tender, warm, and sweet, for tomorrow they may well be words you'll have to eat." Think about it. Make the words you speak today tender, warm, and sweet, for tomorrow they may well be words you have to eat. I have one more poem I'm going to share with you. And the poem I'm sharing with you now is from, I'm not going to say who until I read the poem. And I hope that by the time I read the poem that you'll know who she is, because I should hope that we all know who this woman is. "I freed 1,000 slaves. I could have freed 1,000 more if they only knew they were slaves. I freed 1,000 slaves. I could have freed 1,000 more if they only knew they were slaves." I take that I could open up a discussion on that. I take that to mean that sometimes we don't know the situation we're in. We don't know our condition. You know, we become so complacent and so happy and so glad to have a little that we don't reach for a lot. Problem there could be that if you're so satisfied with just a little and something happens and you lose that little, then what? And God gave us a great body. He gave us a body with a mind that is far greater than any computer. So it doesn't hurt to stretch out, you know. I'm not saying reach out so much for money or riches, but exercise your mind. Did you know that a lot of people who have trouble with their mind is because they don't exercise it? And you might want to think about that. Alzheimer's, a lot of times, Alzheimer's, dementia, comes in from people not exercising their minds. So let's always try to use that mind. And another thing, it's okay to be humble. You know, it's okay to be humble. But not always be humble. And understand why you're humble. In other words, when I say humble, you don't have to brag. It's okay to give other people credit if other people have helped you. It's okay to give yourself credit. Sometimes we're too hard on ourselves. And that leads me to this. I took this from the Bible itself, at 1 Peter 5, 6, and 7. It says, "Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, so that he may exalt you in due time, while you throw all your anxiety on him, because he cares for you." So you always know there's somebody who cares for you. You can be sure that God cares for you, Jesus cares for you. And there are times when I will talk about God and I'll mention his name, because his name is Jehovah. But this quote comes from 1 Peter 5, 6, and 7. It says, "Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, so that he may exalt you in due time, while you throw all your anxiety on him, because he cares for you." So, when I write little notes and take quotes from the newspaper, as I did from our local newspaper, you'll find that you can do it too, because you can always refer back. I sometimes find myself looking at cereal boxes. I remember years ago, the oatmeal packets had some information. It was always some important information. And I would empty the packs and I'd save them. And I wish I could find them, but I would save them and take them to work. And I started my children reading it. And one day, sometimes they would have to give me something they learned that day before they could walk out of the room. And so many of them used those cereal packets because they had interesting facts, they were correct, and they were educational. You know, it gave them some great information. Another thing I want to talk to you about today is a thesaurus. If we're going to write, we want to have a thesaurus. This is the one thing that I will ask you to please invest some money in. Invest money in a thesaurus, because it'll last forever and it will improve your knowledge, your comprehension. In other words, a thesaurus is a book that's written to give you other words to express yourself. If you find yourself writing and you're saying the same thing over and over again, what you might want to do is use a thesaurus. That way you'll find another word. You'll be saying the same things, but you'll be using a different word. I remember my son, when he was younger, and I know he doesn't remember, but I was thinking about the other day, I've developed a bad habit in my old age. I curse. But I remember when I raised my children, I didn't curse so much. And I remember my son said to me one day, "Mommy, you have a way of telling people off, and I think sometimes they don't even know you told them off until they think about it. Where do you get all those words from?" You know, when I think about times like that, and I know that this really helped me even in my profession, because when I worked 30 years as a teacher, and I thought at times about my children's behavior, the things they would try to pull, and I looked at other people's children like they were mine. They were my children. In fact, I was so impressed because there wasn't a year that I taught that some child didn't come up and call me mama or grandmama. I like that. That lets me know that I must be doing something right. I'm doing something these children really like and they approve of. So we'll be talking about using a thesaurus, and we'll be talking about other things. Like I went to the dollar store the other day. That's a curse for me. I cannot go in the dollar store and come out without spending a lot of money. But there are a lot of educational things in the dollar store. Things that cost like a dollar. Everything's a dollar. And just because you're an adult, that doesn't mean that you can't find something in the dollar store. Like this book, it's called Math, Basic Concept, Pre-K Workbook. They have these books on different levels. So if you have not been keeping up, with reading and writing and math, you might just want to go to the dollar store. This one was written for kindergarten. So if you have a child around the house, the child doesn't have to be kindergarten age. I've talked to some 2-year-olds that will astound you, the things they know. So when you go to the dollar store, pick up something. In fact, I have no children at home. I have no grandchildren biologically, but I have many grandchildren. And I buy stuff just to have around my house so that I can play with children if they ever show up. I can do things with them. Today, this might take a few minutes, but everybody that I've ever shared this with have thanked me. And I want to share it with you. And again, I'm doing this because this is Dr. King's month, his birthday, and I feel this is very beneficial. The name of this paper is, "What If There Were No Black People?" This is a story of a little boy named Theo who woke up one morning and asked his mother, "Mom, what if there were no black people in the world?" Well, his mother thought about that for a moment, and then she said, "Son, follow me around today, and let's see what it would be like if there were no black people in the world." Mom then said, Go get dressed, and we'll get started." Theo ran to his room to put his clothes and shoes on. His mother took a look at him and said, "Theo, where are your shoes? And those clothes are all wrinkled, son. I must iron them." But when she reached for the ironing board, it was no longer there. Sarah Boone, a black woman, invented the iron board, and Jan Metzellinger invented the shoelacing machine. "Oh well," she said, "please go and do something to your hair." Theo ran in his room to comb his hair, but the comb was not there. You know, Walter Salmons, a black man, invented the comb. Theo decided to just brush his hair, but the brush was gone. Well, because Lydia O. Newman, a black female, invented the brush. Well, this was a sight. No shoes, wrinkled clothes, hair a mess, even mom's hair. Without the hair care invention of Madam C.J. Walker, well, you get the picture. Mom then told Theo, let's do our chores around the house and then take a trip to the grocery store. Theo's job was to sweep the floor. He swept and swept. When he reached for the dustpan, it was not there. Why? Why, Lloyd P. Ray, a black man, invented the dustpan. So he swept his pile of dirt over in the corner and left it there. He then decided to mop the floor. But the mop was gone. You see, Thomas W. Stewart, a black man, invented the mop. Theo yelled to his mom, Mom, I am not having any luck. Well, son, she said, let me finish washing these clothes and we will prepare a list for the grocery store. When the wash finished, she went to place the clothes in the dryer. But it was not there. George T. Salmon, a black man, invented the clothes dryer. Now I'm going to stop there, but I want you to know I only read half a page. And on the second sheet, there's another half page. I'm going to wait and see who might have heard me read this. And if you respond or make a comment, and if you really desire to hear more, I would be glad to share more with you. Now, what I've done when I was teaching, when we talked about these people, my children made a note of all the people I talked about. And they did more research. They found out more. They got more information about these people. So as a parent, I'm saying that you can share things with your children, give them just an idea, and give them a chance to do research, find more information. I hope you enjoyed that. I have one other thing for right now. And speaking of poems, I am not that good at it, but I don't mind. I was looking at, I like the haiku poem because those poems don't have to rhyme. In fact, in times like these, when I was still working, I remember for Dr. King sometimes my children would do haiku, and what you would do if you wanted to write about a person, and husbands can do this for their wife, wives can do it for their husbands, children can do it for their parents, and the easiest way to do this poem, and you can even present it to your children, like if I wanted to do a poem for my grandmother. My grandmother is my favorite person. Her name was Vi, this pen, I'll have to use another pen. My grandmother's name was Viola. I could even do it in all caps. But for V, I would say very kind. Okay. I would say intelligent. Now, what I would do, what I had my children do, if there was a person they wanted to write about, they did. And I always told them, check the thesaurus to be sure but you're really saying what you want to say, because this very kind, maybe later, if I want to express what I mean by my grandmother being kind, I might want to talk about her. I might want to say some of the kind things that she did. Like, my grandmother raised all of her grandchildren. The school bus always unloaded at my grandmother's house. The community loved my grandmother. But I think since we're talking about Martin Luther King, I probably should have said something about Dr. King. So, here's, and I probably would say Dr. King or Martin Luther King. Depends on how far I want to go. But for today, I'll just say Dr. King. Now, we know a lot about Dr. King, and we know that he was a very kind person. He was intelligent. He was generous. Most generous, because he actually gave his life to this country. Okay? There's so many things we could say, and I hope you would think of a way to represent him. He respected people, and we should respect him. I mentioned generous. So this is something that you could have your child do around the house, or you can do it, and you don't have to do it all at one time. You can just get it started, and as you want to, you can finish it. Also, what I did with my children, I always bought construction paper, and we would cut out a construction paper, and maybe like somebody like Dr. King, we might make a poster, you know, do the poem, maybe find some pictures of him or some articles of him from the newspaper, and you can post it to the construction paper. And it's not bragging, but I had some very fine students. I never disliked teaching. I still love children today. And I remember I've had other teachers that didn't like the idea that my children always had something posted in the lunchroom or the hall, you know, and it was always informational. It was not junk. It was something that other children could learn from, and I was proud of my children. I had some very fine children. In fact, one of my children, she recommended me for Who's Who in America's Teachers. So that's a big organization, and I'm proud to be in their book. Well, today's been a great day, and I hope you remember Annie's Way, and I hope you share with your friends. Please tell your friends to look me up, because I will be coming back. I thank you, my audience, and I most certainly thank my dear son. There was one other. Anyway, I'll do this when I come back. I started to think about something else, but when I come back I will. So I thank you, and I'll see you next week or any day, because I'll always be there. You can find me on YouTube. Tell your friends. Thank you.